Hey everyone, just want to encourage you to find us on your listening platform and give us a rating. Anywhere you listen to that has a rating system, go on over and give us a rating and maybe leave us a review. Let us know your thoughts. These ratings really do help. Thank you so much for listening. On to this week's episode.
Hanging out
Down the street,
the same old thing
we did last week.
Not a thing to do but talk to you.
Oh, we're all right. We're all right.
Hello, Wisconsin!
We're talking about That 70s Show, guys. That 70s Show and the new Netflix. What is it actually? A remake, reboot, or a revival of That 70s Show? I guess a reboot-ish kind of?
I guess a reboot kind of thing. Reboot revival?
Reboot, revival, sort of. And maybe even a remake.
I mean, it's technically a spin-off, but
yeah. But all right, so we'll put it in the revival category. And That 90s Show on Netflix, the remake, reboot, spin-off thing. So yeah, let's get into it. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Rolando.
And this is Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals.
An original podcast
about
unoriginality.
So before we get into it, a couple days ago, the Oscar nominations came out, and I kind of wanted to chat about it with you.
I don't want to chat. I don't know anything about it.
Oh, okay. Let's just skip it then.
The only thing I know is that, like, as we predicted, what's her
Angela Bassett
got the Oscar nom. That makes it the first Marvel Cinematic Universe
for acting. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nomination. Any big ones that got nominated that we covered?
Yeah, we've covered 3 of the 10 nominated films, and potentially we'll do a 4th film.
What 3?
Okay, so the nominees that we've covered are Avatar: The Way of Water, which you actually were not present for, but
wait, it got nominated for Best Picture?
It got nominated for Best Picture.
That's an atrocity.
You haven't seen it.
Just from the trailer, I can tell you that's a goddamn abomination.
Well, the first one got nominated, and the first one was
the first one was groundbreaking. What's groundbreaking about this second one?
Oh my gosh, this is as groundbreaking as the first one. You weren't on the podcast. You don't know.
Nor did I listen to the episode.
Thanks so much for your support, Rolando.
I don't dwell in the past. I'm only looking forward to the future.
All right, the other nominated film we covered is Elvis, which really kind of constitutes as like a remake or revival since Elvis's story has been told many, many times. So we kind of were very loosey-goosey that week, but hey, we covered it. It was a good episode. Listen to it.
Also, something I just don't think deserves an Oscar nomination.
Yeah, I'm kind of shocked. I'm happy, but I'm also kind of shocked because I was like, wow, I just didn't think so.
Yeah, it's just
and then Top Gun Maverick got nominated for Best Picture.
Which is not going to win, but deserves the win.
It's not. Well, you see, Avatar: The Way of Water and Top Gun Maverick got in there because I think the Academy realized we should nominate movies that people see.
Well, that's why they added like 10.
Yes,
10
but
films.
Yeah, they added 10 films though, like a long time ago, and like the movie theater going and like the divide between like the movies that people see and the movies that people don't see has grown even more wider. And so I think just like these past couple of years, especially since the pandemic, the Oscars, nobody cares. People don't care about the Oscars anymore. Rightfully it used to be kind of like a big thing. And it's like so weird. Like, why do you not care out of curiosity?
I honestly don't watch that many movies unless it's for the podcast.
Do you care about the Emmys?
Not even. I'm not like, I don't really care about award culture.
There you go. Yeah.
But I do prefer the Emmys over the Oscars because usually the Emmys I will have seen more and I tend to be more invested in those shows.
Got it.
Than the Oscars for sure.
Yeah, I think as a society we used to be more into these like awards and used to be like, let's see all these movies and vote as to who we think deserves it. And like maybe it's the millennials taking over, but millennials don't give a fuck about award shows like that. It feels
I think it's actually the younger generations.
Definitely also Gen Z. But also I think, now we're all of the age group that makes up like the chief demographics of certain things. So
I also think the other problem though with the award shows is just that we as a society, like I think the appeal of the war shows back then was like the glamour, the fashion, the
Yeah.
prestige. But now, since celebrities are so accessible because of social media, it's like it's just another. We just feel like it's another thing that they're just like blowing smoke up each other's asses, and it's you don't need
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And as a society too, we're more cynical. So like you said, they're blowing smoke up each other's asses is definitely how we feel about it. And again, people are like movies have a lot of real competition. They're not the number one platform of media anymore. So people don't care as much because most of the time too, they're probably looking at the list and being like, I haven't seen half these films, nor do I care to. So interesting times we live in. But we covered 3 of the 10. Um, we might cover the fourth, which is All Quiet on the Western Front, that got nominated for Best Picture. So I'm going to use it as an excuse to cover that because I've wanted to cover that. Even though, who cares if it wins or not? I just want to cover it. So,
All right.
all right, cool. So that's that. I guess, now we could get into this week's topic, which is that 70s show / that 90s show. Did you watch that 70s show growing up?
I didn't watch it religiously, right? Like it wasn't my friends.
Mm.
It was more like something occasionally it would be on and I would watch it and stuff, and I get a giggle here and there. You know what I realized? Like I was never big into shows and movies that are about getting high because I enjoy getting high. I don't like watching media that's about getting high. I just feel like it's
Okay.
like poser shit. Like it's like you fucking losers. Like
Okay, yeah, I guess you could. That's an interesting first stepping off point to make about that 70s show because that is a big chunk of it. Like it's established within, I think, the pilot.
the
To
pilot
that,
for sure. Like yeah, they have like the stoner circle,
yeah, yeah, that's like, and the point of view of him when he's talking to his parents and stuff.
which was great, which is funny.
Yeah, and actually, I thought that was cool. I didn't watch this. I actually realized that a lot of late 90s, early 2000s sitcoms revolved around a bunch of friends together, and most of them being white with like maybe one token person who was a POC.
Mm-hmm.
Friends, That 70s Show, Big Bang Theory, How I Met Your Mother. Yeah, all shows that I mean, Friends I like, but the rest of them I never cared for.
Big
So
Bang Theory was what year? That was like way later.
Big Bang Theory and I think How I Met Your Mother both came out in the early 2000s. Whereas That 70s Show came out in the 90s.
Yeah, that 70 show came out in the 90s. I feel like Big Bang Theory only recently just ended, and I think they had like that was like already
Let's
like
see. I'm typing if you hear that.
the aughts.
It came out and it debuted in 2007.
2007. Yeah, so that's late aughts and stuff. So
I
that's already
suppose
like
so, but
past. Like that's already when like I think streaming is about to dawn, and you know what I mean.
about to, but it's still right there in the heyday and kind of like, okay, well, we done a show about these type of people and these type of people. Now let's do a show about these type of people, and all of them are mainly white.
Right.
I've never watched the Big Bang Theory, but
I mean,
are they?
it gets a
mainly
lot of hate, but yeah, they're predominant. There's one token,
POC.
person of color,
Yeah.
and that is Raj.
Okay.
And just like Fez, like the question of sexuality is constantly there because they make that character effeminate.
I see. So look, it is what it is that these shows have all white people. It's not like it's something that's gonna like piss me off automatically. It is what it is. So many of these old school shows fall victim to that, So, but again, just pointing it out the fucking obvious.
You know what's so interesting
Mm-hmm.
about that critique? It's just like, oh, why do all these friends have to be white? Like, I think my friends predominantly tend to be Hispanic when I hang out, and there's like the token one or two white person. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's like I don't think it's a fair critique when this is like, why is everyone got to be white? Because it's like usually you hang out with what you know, right?
No,
And
absolutely.
usually
Yeah.
who you grow up with stuff, that tends to be like
I think
depending on your
the
neighborhood.
critique would be more so than they're all white. Like
all
the
the shows.
are
That
white.
is a fair critique. It's just like, well, why are
Yeah.
all these shows white? Why don't we have shows that are about the black friend group or like the Hispanic friend group? And
Yeah. And if they do, can they be on like bigger networks with more, mainstream accessibility?
yeah, not like UPN.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that for a while, that's what it was. It's not anymore. We've really improved upon that. So,
Have we?
I would say we have.
Okay. Go ahead. What?
All right, well,
Like,
let's talk about some of the most prominent shows currently about maybe a group of friends. And now this is where you're going to have to talk about that.
I mean, the most prominent show right now that comes to mind that's still running is Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and they are all white.
Oh, and we're talking strictly about sitcoms.
Yes. Sitcoms.
I think, aren't sitcoms kind of dead, though?
No, we've had this discussion. Sitcoms are not dead.
The
multicam
in front of a live audience sitcom, that's dead.
That is dead.
Yeah,
yes, but not the sitcom. Actually, the sitcom I think is alive and well. Abbott Elementary. No, that's a predominantly minority cast, but that's a workplace comedy. That's not really a friend comedy.
Yeah. Now, a lot of these friend comedies have been taken over by the workplace comedy.
And there's a reason for that, right? Because post 9/11, no, post 9/11 is when we moved away from New York City. But also, I think it was like after the show, after The Office, the reason I think we as a culture moved towards workplace comedies because like they allow for more culture. Like you choose your friends, you can't choose who you work with unless you quit. But like, you know what I mean, you're stuck with them. Therefore making the whatever drama happens in workplaces, you're stuck with. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they're out of your control. That's why shows like Parks and Rec was popular. Abbott Elementary right now. I'm trying to think of Ted Lasso is basically a workplace comedy.
American Auto, Supermarket. I don't know.
Superstore, which I loved. I loved Superstore.
Now, are these shows diverse in their cast?
Superstore is, I would say, predominantly white, but like it has a Hispanic lead. Oh no, actually, that's a lie. I would say that's a mixed bag of like cultures and stuff, which I think is actually fairly representative of like as someone who worked at a supermarket, like what you would see. You know?
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, we're getting a little off topic, but suffice to say that this used to be more common, at least in the representation of the 90s, and we've gotten somewhat better, maybe not as better as we hope we are, or at least maybe I am in my dreamland hoping we are. Okay, so that 70s show, really, really simply put, this is a show about a group of friends, because that's what we're talking about, friends shows, and they're all living in the fictional town of Point Place, Wisconsin, between May 17th, 1976, the pilot, to New Year's Eve of 1979, right before it turns 1980, and then the show just cuts out, and that's it, because we're not going to spend any time in the 80s, because then it wouldn't be that 70s show. Right,
because we already had that one 80s show, and it flopped.
Yes, that's right. When that 70s show was so successful, they tried to do that. No good. So, show is about Eric Furman, who's the main character, played by Topher Grace, and he's kind of like this nice, kind of dorky kid who everyone likes to hang out in his basement. He's got this ultimate crush on his next door neighbor. He's known for years and years and years, Donna Pinciotti, I believe, played by Laura Prepon, or whatever her name is, who I think is so hot.
Laura Prepon,
yeah. It's that voice, it's that husky voice that I'm just like, oh, she's so hot.
Isn't she a Scientologist?
I think she was, but I think she stopped. You know.
No, you're right.
Like Leah Remini.
Laura Prepon.
Prepon, yeah. She was also in Orange is the New Black, and she was a hot-ass lesbian, so favoritism. There's also Ashton Kutcher, who plays Michael Kelslow, who's like the idiot of the group, and just, you know, yeah, he's
the idiot heartthrob.
But he's a hottie. Yeah, he's
for
tall,
sure. Yeah, he's like the himbo.
Fit. Yeah, he's a himbo. There you go. Perfect word for him. Danny Masterson plays Stephen Hyde, who's the sarcastic, you know, token, maybe quote-unquote cool one. He's always got his glasses on and always down to smoke and, yeah, make fun of other people.
He's also like the, not outlier, but he's definitely the poorer one out of the group. He comes from like the broken family. And I think he is the first one to get like hooked on like alcohol.
Oh, wow. Okay.
If I remember one of his story arcs and stuff.
Oh, boy. Yeah. It's always the poor kid that has to develop the problems.
yeah, totally.
Reminds me of Boy Meets World. There's Mila Kunis as Jackie Burkhart, who, when she started the show, was 14 years old.
I know. Can you believe that? She admitted that she lied about her age, but still.
That's crazy.
They were pairing her up with Ashton Kutcher. The early episodes that I was watching, they never really kissed. It was always like insinuated and stuff, and then they would go off camera.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess creators were just like, okay, we can't obviously have these two
because
making out.
Yeah.
And now they're married, so weird world.
Look at that.
It's only 6 years apart though. It's just they started off as like a 20.
Yeah, but when they started off, she was 14, he was 19, and that's
Yeah.
But yeah, Jackie, she's the youngest, and they kind of don't like her in the beginning. She's kind of rich and spoiled and just kind of a buzzkill, but they grow on her. Last but not least is the foreign exchange student that you mentioned, Fez, who they don't even say what country he's from, so he's just kind of making fun of anyone who's not born American.
It's a running joke. Anytime you mention his country's name, like it gets obscured by the sound.
Yes. And yeah, he's like a ladies' man, kind of a figure, but he's also like rarely effeminate, as you said. So, and a lot of the time, like
Fez was not a ladies' man.
You wouldn't say he was a ladies' man?
Fez actually was never, like, he was always trying. He was like a horn bag, but he would, unless in the later seasons, I know he ends up with Jackie.
I think
but
he
like
does
he
in
was
the later
never
seasons, because that comes into play in that 90s show.
That's like a shift in the character, but like he was never a ladies' man. He was always like generally like in the show, he was always like kind of like the weird loser exchange guy who was kind of cheap.
I think he becomes one just because of the way that I saw like I saw the series finale and stuff. But I could be wrong. Whatever.
I know he ended up with Jackie, for example.
Didn't Jackie end up with like all of them at some point?
Well, Jackie basically got run trained by the entire crew except for Eric. like it was she was with Kelso for that was her on again off again relationship. Then she would go with Hyde, and then she eventually ended up with Fez. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's her arc.
And last but not least, we also have the parents of the group, mainly Kitty Foreman and Red Foreman, who are Eric's parents. And Kitty's a very motherly, affectionate, very perky mom, and Red is a very stereotypical dad who he's tough and he's hard around the edges, and he was a war veteran and he's a disciplinarian. But the nice thing about Kitty and Red's relationship is that they still like to keep things exciting.
Yeah.
And
Red
have some
Foreman
fun.
is played by Kurtwood Smith, but do you know who was originally they were trying to get to play his dad, the dad?
Who?
Chuck Norris.
Really?
How weird would that show have been if it was Chuck Norris's terrible acting?
Because that's crazy.
Kurtwood Smith is so good at this show.
He is, yeah.
Like rewatching it, I'm just like, God, he is like magical on screen,
He's a great actor. He's the bad guy in RoboCop, which is one of my favorite movies. And he's so good. It's like he's unrecognizable, from one to the next. He's a really good character actor. I mean, there's other characters that come in and out of the series, but I think those are the main ones, and especially kind of important for transitioning to that 90s show. This ran for 8 seasons from 1998 to 2005, and towards the end, a lot of these people got to be famous, and they were like, "Hey, I need to move my career forward, so I got to leave the show." So Topher Grace exited in season 7. I think shortly thereafter, Ashton Kutcher did.
Yeah, Ashton stayed for a couple more episodes, but his contract, as soon as his contract was up, he also left. I think the only ones who stayed behind out of the original cast were Mila
Kunis,
Danny,
Wilmer Valderrama,
and Laura.
And Laura Prepon, yeah.
And they brought in, I forgot, he's an actor I've seen in a lot of things before.
Josh Myers.
That's it. They brought him in, and he was kind of the worst.
Yeah.
Well, he was the love interest to Laura.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was and it was Donna's new love interest, and it was just I think he was the cousin or something. It was silly.
Yeah. So I watched about less than 10 episodes of the show.
Forever?
Yeah. And because again, I knew about it. I knew a lot of my friends watched it, and I knew the dynamics, but I never really sat down and watched an episode, at least from beginning to end, or really paying attention to it. It must have been on in the background or something.
Mm-hmm. Which is funny because you love old shit.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say this is old shit. This is new shit trying to be old shit.
It's it's like showing you remember the 70s, how cool they were. I thought you would have been all about this.
Yeah, so okay, I actually
bell-bottom jeans watching this.
I have some problems with this show. I mean, first of all, they say that Star Wars came out in 1976 when it didn't. Star Wars came out in 1977. They're getting their fucking facts wrong.
Indeed.
That really pissed me off because I was like, do they think that I guess the internet wasn't as ubiquitous in 1998. Okay, sure.
No,
but like,
sure, definitely wasn't.
but like people have memories like, hey, like VHSs existed and said Star Wars came out in 1977. So that was like my big gripe about it first. I thought it was fine. I think my whole question of watching it is this audience for real? Because like it almost seemed very like Married with Children, where they're like screaming their asses off in that audience. And I'm like, do they get the audience drunk, or is this just like all of this stuff added in after and like editing? Because it was like, I'm like, the show's not that funny.
I don't think it was. I don't think it was filmed in front of a live audience.
Ah, there we
Yeah,
go.
I'm pretty sure this was not like a show that was filmed in front of a live audience. I can't be 100% sure. I don't know. I didn't do that deep dive of research into this, but I'm pretty sure it's just a laugh track.
Okay, because like, you know, sometimes you can tell when it's in front of a live audience when like an actor takes a break or something, waits for the laugh and all this. But that audience was like so obnoxious that I couldn't believe it. And that for me is a turnoff. Is that a turnoff for you?
No, because I like multi-camera sitcoms.
With laugh tracks.
Yeah, I mean,
Whether or
it's
not
like,
the laugh track is organic or not.
whether or not it's organic or not. I know a lot of contemporary TV show watchers do not, but I don't know. I think it just gives me like a nice like retro feel to the show when they have it.
Okay.
I'm fully aware that like what's it called, the multi-camera show is a hard thing to still make and stuff because it's so funny. I was just watching a video about like why multi-camera shows are like hard to make nowadays, and it's a lot of it has to do with the aspect ratio of our consumption of TV. Because you know how with the new TVs we moved into 16:9 as opposed to TV shows that used to be filmed in 4:3.
Yeah.
And the 4:3 is a better aspect ratio for the multi-camera sitcom because it just focuses on just the actor. It lives in that kind of close up, which is weird because you know comedy tends to live in the wide, but because of TV, like you know when we were watching these shows, like you would just focus on the one actor talking and stuff, and then like maybe you get the wide shot. And as a director, you had to like make sure you stage them correctly, block them correctly. But now because of like the wider aperture that we have on our cameras and stuff, now you have a lot of dead space that you're not kind of like focusing on like not on the wrong thing, but like there's more to focus on, right? And I think that has kind of in a way hurt like that multi-camera sitcom feel.
I think so for sure. It is interesting too because sometimes when you watch it, it's just like so clear and so crisp the picture, and then it goes back to that old-fashioned style. It feels kind of like it's misplaced.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it is kind of like a mind fuck of some sorts. This show is highly successful and people loved this show. I feel like it's one of, you know, at least Fox's most successful sitcoms to ever air on their channel. I think it's because you can put something in the 70s and give it like this retro kind of like callback feeling and then address things that other things can't and make it unique. You know, this show addressed a lot of the social issues of the 70s, like, okay, like weed and smoking, sexual attitudes, you know, the economic hardships that happened in the 70s recession.
Actually,
a lot of layoffs and stuff.
Yeah, that was actually probably portrayed the most, I think, nicely by Red.
Yes.
And like the uncertainty of how they're going to make it as a family without making the show about that, right? Because the show's focus was the teens.
Yes.
And so there's kind of like this like level of like a wall between that reality and like, you know, what kids are experiencing, which I think is in retrospect watching them just like that's kind of it's like I think it's a very well put together show like in retrospect. Like I didn't like it as much, but going back and like watching some of these episodes, I'm just like this is like I understand the appeal for this show. Like this is a very well written, tight show.
Yeah, and it's meant to be for young kids, but people who grew up in the 70s could, you know, enjoy it. At least in the 90s, it was that way. And then again, it's just all about kids and their dynamics and like there's everyone loves the central love story of like two people, will they, won't they? Even though Eric and Donna pretty quickly will they and do they, and they do.
They do.
And
They're
then they
just
are
on and
together
off again.
for the
They're
whole
on
time.
and off is the thing, but
Yeah. And it's just very like, it's Point Place, Wisconsin. It doesn't exist, but it's just like your average small, Americana town. And I think people actually like have this sense of nostalgia for that kind of life that might not exist anymore.
well, for sure. I mean, I think that was the appeal of of that '70s show.
Yeah.
It kind of exploited nostalgia. So yeah, so it helps that older audience to watch it and just be like, oh, I remember that. That's funny.
Yeah.
And it's great because like in retrospect, also the show didn't like it never made fun of the technology and stuff, and it was never like those kind of like one hit notes of just like, oh, look at how silly Betamaxes were, right?
Yeah.
Actually, for the Betamax joke, the recurring joke was constantly just like, I don't want a Betamax, I want a tape deck, a tape deck, right? And then what does he get? Of course, the Betamax and stuff. I think a lesser show could have done just like a one hit joke about like, look at the beta deck, the Betamax, look how silly it was back then. Remember, where this show in the earlier seasons, because I never really watched the later seasons. Once Jackie is hooking up with Fez, I kind of also, I too let go of the show. Just like nothing.
Is that when it jumped the shark?
I think it lasted like 3 years after that. So
Damn.
Did it really jump the shark? No, I think the show, like The Office, when the main stars leave, it's just like one of those shows. It's just like, why are we continuing this? We should just end it.
Yeah.
But the landscape for television was so different back then, because back then you're supposed to keep making these, like the network, as so long as like your ratings don't drop, they're going to keep churning out these shows and stuff, which doesn't allow some shows to have like a proper ending because you're at the whims of the network.
Yep. Yeah. And some shows get canceled, and like a big one being My So-Called Life in the 90s, and people are like, oh my God, that season finale ended on such a cliffhanger, that series finale, and people never even got like their satisfaction from that ending. So it's always like it's either that or the other extreme, where something goes on for too long and then it kind of ruins it for you. Like, do you think that Friends got ruined in their last couple seasons when they started pairing like Rachel and Joey together?
I still stand by the fact that like I could see why Rachel and Joey tried it out. They didn't, and I think I mentioned this in the Friends episode. Just like, I get it. They're both two hot people. They're single. Like, of course they're going to try to like, it's like, maybe we could try this out. And then when they realize like, nah, this is weird, that's fine. Like, that's normal. I think that happens in Friends group.
It's never happened to me, but I guess it's happened before.
Maybe you need to like expand your circle of friends. So
I mean, I definitely don't have as many lesbians as I would like. So that's definitely a reason.
I mean, if I've seen the L word, which I have for this podcast, like, it's just like L word would tell me it's just like, it's a who's who of like, who have I gone down on,
I mean, I guess when I was younger, I experimented with people, and then we just continued being friends. So I guess it's true. But this is, well, whatever. Friends was a little different, but I'll give you that. You said something really interesting, that the landscape is different now for television. It's a completely different ball game. And that's the environment in which this 90s show exists, where there's streaming to compete with, there's YouTube TV, and like people making their own original content out there. There's stuff that still airs like 8 p.m. on a Wednesday on your like main network. There's just so much stuff. And it's hard to like decipher sometimes the cream of the crop. I mean, there's so much stuff out there that sometimes we're like, what are we going to choose to, cover? Because all of these things are like conflicting with one another. That 90s show is not on Fox. It's on Netflix. This was made strictly for Netflix, which is interesting because I thought that 70s show was going to be on Netflix, but it's on Peacock, even though it was a Fox show. I don't understand how any of this works.
Because that 70s show's popularity grew when Netflix picked up the streaming rights and stuff, but they lost the rights in 2020 as Peacock was about to go pick them up and stuff. So that's why now they're on Peacock.
There you go. Yeah, Peacock was smart enough to be like, if we're gonna get the people to come to us for The Office, we got to offer them other shows. So that's why they grabbed that.
And
shit
then, Peacock, NBC, they have like a large library. I don't know who was I know it was aired on Fox, but it might not have been a Fox show, right? Like it could have been produced by a different company, right? Like it could have been produced. The production company was the Carsey Warner company, so I don't know what that is. So that means that I guess it's whoever buys the rights to it can own it.
Carsey and Warner aren't.
They did, for example, Third Rock from the Sun. Where's that remake? I would so want a revival of Third Rock from the Sun.
Yeah, they did Roseanne. That's how
they did Roseanne. Yes.
That's how I know them. Yeah, which got revived, and we still haven't covered. Maybe we will, even though I'm sure The Conners is fucking terrible.
Oh, Eddie loves it. I've actually seen some episodes. Like, that show is still pretty grim.
Yeah.
Like for a comedy, but it's still a pretty grim show.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's somewhat true to Roseanne, because it like took comedy and the harsh realities of what it is to be like a person in middle America. But now I'm sure it's lower class America. So, I mean middle class America. Anyway, in middle America, literally Illinois. Okay. That 90s show, Netflix, developed by the same people who developed the first one, Bonnie Turner and Terry Turner and Mark Brazil. Do you know who Mark Brazil is?
I do not. Should I?
When I was researching it, I found this weird thing where the only information I could find about Mark Brazil is that he had a very public conflict with Judd Apatow, and like their like really aggressive emails to one another got leaked in the early 2000s when Judd Apatow wanted to have Topher Grace on one of his shows, and like they just got into this huge feud about it, and they were
fighting about Topher Grace. That's so
I guess
funny.
they just didn't like each other, and they're like, "Your show sucks. No, your show sucks. You stole my idea. No, you didn't. You stole my idea. You wish you were me." Like that kind of stuff.
What show would Judd Apatow? What, Freaks and Geeks?
Undeclared, the college show.
Wow, man, that's a show I haven't thought about in forever.
Yep. So there you go. So they decided to take the next generation, or maybe a generation later, of the people who were in the That 70s Show and visit them. So now these are the children of the main characters from That 70s Show. So, of course, all of them ended up high school sweethearts, right? Donna and Eric had a baby and named it Leia because he's obsessed with Star Wars.
Right.
Which, like, if I was Donna, I would have left his ass. I'm sorry, but, like, naming your child Leia?
I don't know. It's kind of a cute name. It's not a name that I would go with.
And this was like before Star Wars was cool. It was like the mid 90s. So the 3 films didn't come back yet.
But that's because he was a diehard nerd, you know?
Yeah, again, I would have left his ass. We also have Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher's Kelso have a baby together. And they have Jay Kelso. Mm-hmm. So we have Leia, we have Jay, and then we have a bunch of other girls. One of them is Gwen, who is the next door neighbor now instead of Donna, which I haven't finished the show, but I'm like, nope. Bisexual vibes there? No?
I thought so too. They don't.
What a bummer.
And I looked it up. I'm just like, no, they must, right? And they don't.
They set it up. They even had them sitting on the hood of the car.
We'll get to this. I have a major complaint about that.
Okay. We also have Ozzy. Who is, I think, the only openly gay boy in the group, and he's like really, insightful, perceptive, and kind of like very withdrawn, almost somewhat kid. Cynical, yes. There's Nate Runk, I think is his last name, or just Nate. But he's.
I have no look. I can see them. But I can't
tell them apart. Yeah,
can't tell them apart names wise.
Well, he's the half brother of Gwen, and he's kind of like the Kelso of the group. Now he's kind of the dumbass, but he's got this hot girlfriend named Nikki, who is
with the worst wig.
What is hot with that wig?
Girlfriend. The worst wig. I'm just like, yo, that is an abomination, girl.
I get that people had weird hairstyles in the '90s, but like they didn't look as bad as that.
No, they did not. Fuck. There's no way that she would not have changed it up like regularly.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, if they were going for like, Ty and Clueless, like Ty's haircut looked good. Hers doesn't. So that's the basis right there of the friend group, the new friend group. Leia is now the new Eric. Kelso's there. Ozzy, Nikki, Nate, and Gwen. And she is staying with her grandparents for the summer because apparently where she lives, which I guess is Chicago or something, or
It's so
Milwaukee,
boring.
it's so boring and she has no friends, which is so weird because I'm like, really? Point Place, Wisconsin is more exciting than where you guys live? Okay.
Like, you're in Chicago in the 90s, which I'm only assuming is all drugs and crime.
Yeah,
You know what I
seriously.
mean? Like,
And I love how like Donna, as a grown up and a mom of this baby, who also probably must have given birth to Leia in 1981, right after she fucking graduated high school. She's an author, and fucking Eric Foreman's an adjunct professor. I'm like, wow. I love how everyone in sitcoms, their dreams come true. It's just
sick. Might be.
it's
What do you
only
mean?
in Roseanne and in The Connors where none of your dreams come true. That's why the
That-
show is so grim.
That's not, the dreams come true, but very short lived.
Yes, I guess so. Okay, so like we said, Kelso and Jackie got together, but we don't really know what they do. They wear suits. That's all
They
we
were
know.
getting remarried for that's their second remarriage, I think. Is
Oh
what they
yeah, that
said.
was the joke. Yeah.
But it's confirmed later on that, like, yeah, she was still with him, with Fez, but she left him for Kelso,
Wow.
which I think is kind of mean. Like, like
That is kind of mean. That's kind of messed up. Yeah.
for her to go back. But yeah, everyone knows that, like, her and Kelso were like doomed to end up together.
And I guess they still live in Point Place, which is pretty sad.
I mean, sure.
Maybe I'm being too judgmental. I should
little
not
bit.
do that. Yeah, and Fez comes back too, actually. He comes back in the second or third episode because
Second episode, yeah.
the Gwen and Nate's mom has a boyfriend and it's him, and he's a ladies' man now. So anyway. So pretty much, Leia wants to have friends, so she stays behind and she starts building up like kind of like the same rapport that Eric had with his, where they like to smoke weed and they do that kind of like weed circle shot.
Mm-hmm.
They like to hang out in the basement with all the 70s decor, and just kind of her being awkward and trying to find young love in 1995 is when this takes place. Okay, what are some of your thoughts about this show?
It's giving Disney Channel.
Ooh, that
Do you know what I
is a
mean?
good or bad thing for you?
It's a bad thing.
Hmm.
So because this isn't on network TV,
It's not.
right? So it's just like, we don't have to, like, if you're gonna do a multi-camera sitcom, you can still be, and you're gonna try to be edgy. Just be edgy. There's no point in like you trying to like work around censors. There's no censors on Netflix, right? It's not FCC regulated.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not FCC regulated, right? Because it's a streaming service. It's not like on airwaves. So that's my main complaint. I think the kids are, for the majority, terrible actors and actresses.
Yeah.
And it's also the
do
writing.
not
The
like
writing is
any
not
of
good.
them. Yeah.
They're awful. The
I-
only one that's good is Ozzy.
Ozzy, exactly. I really like Ozzy. I think Ozzy's a natural, and Ozzy's the only time like I laughed.
Well, it's comedic timing.
Yeah.
He understands it.
He's
He
great.
doesn't, and granted, he's playing like, so he's stuck playing like Fez, the other. So not only is he Asian in like a Wisconsin community, but he's also
And gay. Mhm.
He's like got double otherisms on him, but
Yeah.
he's
Not the only POC of the group though, which is at least nice.
I had a problem with that.
Yeah, tell me.
I mean, my main problem is just like, would there really be this diverse a group of friends in the 90s in Wisconsin? Like, I think 3% of the Wisconsin population, I looked it up, is like between 3 and 4% of the population was Asian. So it's just like, they're telling me like out of that 3 to 4% population of Wisconsin, they found the only gay Asian friend, and they're still choosing to be his friend, mind you. In the 90s, mind you, Ellen got canceled because she kissed a woman. You know what I mean? It was just like, I get it. It's a sitcom, suspension of disbelief, but it's just like a little bit too much disbelief on that part.
Yeah, no, these are some really open-minded Wisconsin teenagers in 1995 to have him be with him. But they're all outcasts. And that's one of like the episodes where they're like, "Oh, cool, you feel like you don't fit in? Well, we're all people who don't fit in." Which I find interesting because I'm like, how does Kelso not fit in?
How does
Nate not fit in? Is it
how
just
does the
because
girl not
they're
fit
not
in?
that
Like,
bright?
the
Yeah.
girlfriend. Yeah.
Nikki,
it's just
how
like,
does
I don't
Nikki
understand,
not
like,
fit
how,
in? Yeah. I mean, I might understand how Gwen and Ozzy don't, but I
Right.
don't get the other ones. And
Uh-huh.
they don't have that kind of chemistry. And it's a show about white people, but all of those kids in that '70s show seem like they would be friends.
Yeah,
It was
agreed. And
believable.
when they would take in the one token foreign exchange student. And
Wait,
because let's be real, a lot of the jokes that came for Fez or were about Fez were about his otherness.
yep.
Right? So he was the butt of the joke because he was an other. So yeah, it would make sense for a group of white kids to have a one friend that they can mock for being different. But this diverse, this rainbow of people, I understand they're trying to make up for their mistakes of the past, but it just feels it's a
Forced.
little, yeah, it does feel a little forced. It feels a little bit. I'm not really buying this.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
just
it doesn't feel very organic. I mean, it steals so heavily from everything that you like about that '70s show. Even like the little like skit, like, okay, when we go from one scene to the next, we have our little scenes of them like dancing and it's '90s backgrounds and stuff.
which I
And
didn't need.
it didn't, yeah.
Or make it more 90s. Give me some Lisa Frank. I mean, you know?
Yeah. I, yeah. It felt like it's just another regurgitation of something that, we love and we have nostalgia for, but like giving it too much of a similarity to the original piece and not really adding anything new and insightful.
Yeah.
It's
The
not really giving me any commentary about the '90s either.
It's not because and the fashion. What do you think about the fashion here? Did it feel 90s to you?
No.
It didn't, right? At least the 70s show, like when I'm watching it,
It's
I
clearly
feel like I'm
70s
watching
fashion,
like
yeah.
70s. This one feels like, I don't know, Old Navy. Like,
Yeah.
um
I mean,
like
the most nostalgic I got was when they were in that video store.
the video.
The one that Kelso worked at when she
Okay.
wanted to watch like Clerks
Like
and
the
stuff.
Blockbuster.
The Blockbuster.
Yeah. And even then it was just like, no.
Yeah, that was the only time where I was like, oh wow, yeah, this does take place in the '90s. It just didn't feel. It just didn't work for me.
No, it didn't. I would agree. The other main issue I have was kind of the forced friendship between Leia and Gwen.
Mm.
Right? Because
So let's
like,
talk about that. Yeah.
okay, so here we go. We're gonna get right into it. I thought the writers were gonna create like a lesbian storyline here. I figured like, oh, okay, so this is how we're gonna shake things up. I can get behind this. I'm not so close-minded that I don't want Eric Foreman's daughter to be a lesbian. I'm like, you know what? Because Donna would not give a fuck. Nor would actually
Donna
Kitty.
wouldn't
The
give a
only
fuck.
one actually, and then you would create some conflict because Red might be the only one who needs some time to get used to it. But I'm sure like he would come around, right? Like we've grown with these characters enough to love them, but we know where their hearts lie. And I don't think they would be completely. I don't think any one of them would be homophobic. I just think it would be a learning curve for some of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
They kind of toy with the idea because like this girl, she is staring out the window to this girl dancing to Alanis Morissette.
Yes.
A terrible dance in my opinion.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, like bootleg CDs is going to bring them together. It's just like, yo, this girl was like spying on you. Isn't this a little creepy? I guess not. But
well, not only that, what she said, she's like, I'm just staring at you, wanting to be with you or wanting to be you or something.
yeah, something
Says something like oddly creepy but romantic.
right. And it's just like, so I just assumed this is like, oh, okay, great. This is going to be a coming out story. And I'm like, all right, let's give this a chance. And what happens? She ends up falling for Jay.
So fucking typical.
And that is
by the
the
way,
storyline
they
for
have
the season.
no chemistry.
No, they don't.
At
Also,
all.
I mean, because Jay is so. At least Kelso was lovable, both in the performances and like his goofiness. This Kelso is just not. He's just kind of just like one dimensional.
Yeah, no, I don't feel anything about him. Also,
He's
going back to Gwen and Leia really quick, do you want to finish your statement?
I was gonna say, like, the guy they cast for Kelso, beautiful guy, because like he looks like you would expect Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis's child to look like.
Yeah,
Like,
he does.
I think he looks like exactly like an amalgamation of them. So just like, oh, this is perfect casting. Like
Yeah.
he's gonna be breaking hearts in the near future.
Yes. the thing about them is that they also give them similar beats to Eric and Donna's relationship. So she's also the next door neighbor. Like we
Mm-hmm.
said, they have this moment where they sit on the hood of the car, which was something that Eric and Donna like always did. And then there's even this conflict of the episode where like Leia wants to kiss someone for the first time. Gwen is like oddly protective of her and not
Mm-hmm.
wanting her to do it with Kelso.
Yep.
So it's just like
And I assume right
creative.
there, I assumed actually that episode just be like, okay, so now we're finally gonna get the lesbian storyline here, and it doesn't come. It
It's
doesn't. Like I actually thought it was like, oh, I have a way I can help you, and I thought she was just going for the kiss, but nothing happens.
are they
You
like
know?
not aware, like, and it just makes me think that again, like they're checking off all of the boxes that they know they need to in terms of the diversity, but when it comes to the writing, they're like just going back to their old fucking simple whole like hetero normative ways, which is fine, whatever, but it's like so unaware of itself that it sets this stuff up and like this natural progression that it's seeming to take, and then they just make this huge left turn and like go back to just like almost like, wow, this feels like a 90s show
Mm-hmm.
in the sense where it's like it doesn't even realize the natural progression that the show should be taking. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I
I don't
do
know.
because I think it's like the writer. It feels lazy.
Yeah.
Like here's the problem. Like the writers are trying to hit up all these check marks that are forced, but when
Yep.
they have something when they're writing something that like makes logical sense that you can like easily like build off of, it's just like no, we're gonna go the easier route, right? And then they end up giving like these corny jokes that feel like I don't like children's like a children's show, but like they're smoking weed and doing like drinking. So it's just like here's the disconnect with this show, right? It's giving me Disney Channel or Nickelodeon, but it's trying to be like not. And it's like a weird juxtaposition for me where it's just like who is this fucking show for? Like who I don't get it. Like I like as an adult, as a man in my 30s, late 30s now officially, right? 36 late 30s or is that still mid 30s?
I think yeah, early late 30s.
What? Okay, so mid 30s, I guess. As a man in my 30s, I'm embarrassed watching this show because I'm just like, this is a kids show. But like, that 70s show, even though it was like geared for a younger audience, the jokes were still funny. It was still a tight show. It was still a relatable show. This show is not that. Like this show is just like kind of just terrible plot points.
Yeah.
Just kind of mashed together and stuff. Actually, the best things of the show are Kitty and Red and Ozzy. Like them kind of, and I kind of wish this is what the 90s show was about. Like I would have been okay with the plot of them taking in the daughter for the summer, but like really make the show about them, like their like next chapter of their life as retired people, like all of a sudden having to do, like make them the main characters. Don't make the kids the main characters, I would say. Because I mean Kitty, Joanna Krupp, I think, right? Is that her name?
Yes.
She is struggled in this show, in my
Deborah
opinion.
Jo Rupp, sorry.
Deborah Jo Rupp. She struggled in this show a little bit, and not because of her performance. It's the writing that they gave her was a little bit like weak. It took them a while for them to find their footing again with Kitty. Not so much with Red, but you know, it was still, the writing was so weak that it just kind of felt like caricatures of the original characters. It took them a while to find their beats. Like I would say the beat for me, I think, came in episode 5, which is like the episode where Ozzy comes out to Kitty, and I think it's like a very sweet. I think it's like they're out of the episodes I have seen, it was my favorite episode so far because I think the coming out scene was touching, and I think overall it was like kind of sweet seeing. And Kitty, like I said, Kitty of course would happily, like if it was her granddaughter, she would still embrace her in open arms, right? I just wish it was like, it's a shame that it happened. Not shame that it happened to Ozzy, but it would have been so much better if it was just our girl Leia.
Yes, it would.
You know?
Absolutely would have been. Yeah. It feels like the intentions for this show are not pure in the sense where it's like whoever had the intention of making that 70s show, you know, it was just to make a show about what it was like for probably them, the creators, growing up in the 70s and like memories that they had. And it's like, oh, throwback and stuff. And maybe we could address things now in the 90s that we couldn't in the 70s, whatever. You know, what are the intentions behind this show? One, were they forced to do this? Obviously, they have to make everything all of the tie-ins to the original show as they can, and bring back the original people as guest stars and whatnot. But then you also have to hit all these boxes of today and of the ways that you don't want to get canceled or called out for. So it just feels like they took all of this and maybe they didn't know quite the show that they wanted to do. And I just feel like maybe they were good intentioned, but like everything just comes off as a mess.
Yeah, so. It does. And it's a shame because I don't know, I think realizing as I'm watching it, I'm just like, oh, you guys kind of did hit, like you guys have the foundation here.
Yeah.
Even like the original cast agreed to come back for some episodes. So it's just like all you really had to do was just give, if you guys are going to make the teenagers a focus, like make them funny, make this like a relatable show. And I think the other big miss, tell me if you agree or disagree here, it's just like casting them to be like age appropriate. Like, you know what I mean? Like these kids, they look like kids. And I don't know if that's just me getting older, but like Kelso, he was 20 and he looked like not a 16, 17-year-old when he was like playing the show. But there's a reason he was 20. So was Topher Grace. So was Laura Pepron, right? Like they were older. They don't look like children and stuff. I don't know why we had to go the route of like casting these children to play like the kids that are their own age, which I just don't know. It's a sitcom. Like we could, that's the whole point. I mean, especially if you're making a 90s show. Like the whole point of the 90s was like teen comedy, teen dramas were having 30-year-old people playing teenagers. Look at 90210.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those things have gotten dragged for that now, so I think they just didn't want to, get called out and dragged for it.
You make it a meta point. Like, you know what I mean? Like you go with it and you embrace it. Yeah, I mean that could be it. Where that's maybe why it was also giving me just Disney Channel, because it just ends up feeling like I'm just watching like a Disney Channel original TV show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I was kind of a little bit let down because
underwhelmed.
Yeah, because I was watching, as I do watch these in reverse. I watched that 90s show, and I kept asking Eddie. It's just like, Eddie, was like the 90s show this corny? I don't think it was this corny. Granted, I wasn't that 70s show like that. I was never the biggest fan. I'll admit this, right? But like, I remember it not being this kind of cheesy and stuff. And I went back and started watching. I'm just like, no, these are like relatable stories about teenagers growing up. These other ones feel like more forced, but I don't know. The writing is more organic in the original show. It feels like.
Yeah.
You want to hear sad figures?
Yes.
Between the original airing of that 70s show and the year they portray was 22 years apart.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Between that 90s show where it's set and now it's 27 years apart.
Whoa.
How scary is that?
They mentioned going to see Batman Forever in one of the episodes. So I was like, I remember seeing Batman Forever.
Me too, which I loved. But
me too.
Was that a 1995 film?
Yes, that was a 1995 film. They actually
film?
did their research.
Because they knew that we get called out.
Yeah, by me. Yeah. How much do you think Mila Kunis got paid to like stomp her feet and say Michael and a couple other lines?
I don't know. Good question.
Yeah, because I feel like out of
pretty penny,
everyone, she had the least to do.
But I think she was the one who captured the original character the best. I think.
Oh, you think so?
I think when she came on screen and she was screaming at Kelso, it felt like, oh, she did the assignments. She went back to her roots, and it's like it's hard because she was there as like kind of the joke character, like the surprise like cameo, as opposed to Topher Grace, who kind of had like a major starring role in the first episode. He was struggling with letting go of his daughter, Laura Prepon, who shows up a few times throughout the series as Donna.
Yeah.
Now, I have a question for you. Do you think there's drama between Topher Grace and Laura Prepon and Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis? Because why would they not have all had one scene together?
Well, maybe they did. We didn't finish the show.
No. Topher Grace only shows up the one time.
Oh, maybe
and
then they
so does Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher. Laura Prepon is the only one who shows up regular. Like, not right, like 3 times in the series.
Maybe they just didn't want. Maybe they were too expensive. Maybe they all had conflicting schedules. I don't know, but
Yeah,
maybe
I just
there
thought it
is
was
drama.
because I think Eddie was just like, why wouldn't you just like have them all together for what? Like that seems like you're visiting your family. Why wouldn't you visit your high school friends if you could?
Well, what about without Fez and Hyde? And we can't have Hyde on the show, obviously.
Well, we know why.
So.
Yeah, we know why Hyde, but wasn't on the show.
Yeah, so it's like, but maybe it would feel weird for everyone to see them without those characters present.
Maybe, especially because Hyde was, I think, the only character who was like in every season.
Yeah.
Well, one of the only characters. So maybe, but
could be why.
I don't know. That could. I mean, maybe that's a good theory. We didn't talk about the 2 dead characters who died. Like
2 characters died.
The 2 actors who died.
Who died?
The Eric Foreman's sister who played Lori, the woman who played Lori. She died. She was like addicted to, I think, drugs and stuff.
Oh boy.
And I think she died during the actual making of the show, and they had to like recast her.
Yeah, they did recast her. So
they did recast. Okay, or maybe she didn't die yet, but she was like very, very much under the influence of drugs and stuff, and that's why they replaced her.
Jeez.
And then Donna's mom. That's why she doesn't show up later when Bob shows up.
I mean, I clearly don't know this.
And he has the perm is still alive and well.
Wow. Okay. There we go. Aw.
All right.
Jeez. That's yeah.
That's it. But yeah,
we talked about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I spilled the tea. But yeah, no, I think overall it was just a little underwhelmed. Is it like a terrible show? No, but it's not a show that I'm going to continue. I know that much. Like if they announce a season 2, and knowing Netflix and the way they do things, they might not. The reception for this show, I don't know. Have you heard anything? I don't know if your TikTok gets a lot of television reviews. I don't. TV.
Yeah,
I do. I mean, the stuff that I've been seeing on TikTok has kind of like meh. It's like I'll probably watch it just to see the cameos, but outside of that,
yeah, I don't think I've seen anything though get as panned as Velma did. You know what? Velma's ranking on IMDb is 1.3.
I don't know. Me and Eddie had continued watching it. It might be just an act of defiance, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm kind of just like, this show it's not fire, but I think it's watchable.
I think people are like weirdly like dragging the shit out of it.
They are.
There's worse things.
There are way worse things.
Yeah.
I can't think of it right now. I would watch 5 seasons of Velma over another second season of that 90s show.
Look at that.
You know?
So, yeah, we're doing 2 television shows back to back and 2 shows that people aren't like completely in love with. Were they necessary? Was it needed? Who could say? Probably not.
I could say.
My life is better without any of these properties or whatever. My life is the same. How about that?
No, my life is better with Velma in it.
Is it?
It is.
Wow.
You know why? Because I actually do like adult animations. I think animation is a medium that should get explored more and more by the media in general, right? Like I think it's such an underutilized medium that I think that could liberate creators in storytelling in ways that I don't know. Sometimes we're just too afraid to. Like you love a conventional film, like filmmaking,
yes,
right? Where animation can allow you to not be that. And the problem is with animations that we associate it with like children's stuff. And I think that's why I like adult animation, where it kind of breaks that mold and like shows you
100%. Yeah, I think people need to realize animation is not just for kids.
As opposed to this show, this kind of makes me sad for the multi-camera sitcom, because Netflix did have one very wonderful multi-camera sitcom. It's called One Day at a Time. And that one showed me, it's just like, look, they can still work.
Yeah, hell yeah, they can.
This one is an example of what doesn't. Did you know that How I Met Your Father has an Emmy?
Really?
That's the other multi-camera sitcom that I'm thinking about right now. But it has an Emmy for best editing in a sitcom.
Oh.
And I just found that like hilarious, because like they're marketing their second season, which I didn't think was going to get, because how awful received the first season was. And there's like the Emmy award-winning series returns. I'm just like, what Emmy? That's a lie. That is a ball-faced
Look at
lie. And I
that.
looked it up, and there it
Just
is.
one for editing.
Hey, you know what? It counts.
It does. It does. Absolutely. Wow. Are we going to cover it?
Maybe. I did. I loved How I Met Your Mother. It's like one of my favorite shows. Despite, in retrospect, how problematic it is with its treatment of women. But I think that show is like so charming in the first few seasons. And I know it gets a lot of flack for how it ended, but I think I'm one of the few people who was just like, the show, you guys clearly weren't watching the right show if you didn't think this was going to end this way. Like, you were all in denial if you didn't think that the show was going to end up with Ted and Robin.
Ted, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Even though they fucked up in saying that she wasn't the mom in the first season. She should have
it's
just
still
been
true.
the mom.
It was still the truth. She wasn't the mom. But it was their love story all along. But no, I do enjoy that show. So I'm like really curious because I love Hilary Duff also, right? Like I stan her.
She was in it.
She's the lead for How I Met Your Father.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, when she lost Lizzie McGuire, which I
it's the
thought
closest we're gonna get to doing Lizzie.
This is, and what a shame because I thought Lizzie McGuire would be fire. Like if they went, the reason creative differences is why they didn't proceed. They didn't want Lizzie McGuire having sex. They didn't want Lizzie McGuire breaking off an engagement because he was cheating on her with, you know what I mean? It was too risque for Disney Channel. They were like, no, Lizzie has to stay virginal. And she's just like, fuck that.
Yeah, too bad. I'm glad though, because I was never gonna watch a Lizzie McGuire episode any other way. So
you've never seen Lizzie McGuire?
Not for me.
Wow.
I didn't watch Disney Channel like that. So
I prefer Disney Channel over Nickelodeon any fucking day of the week.
I was a Nickelodeon kid for sure.
I was a Disney Channel kid. It used to be premium television.
Used to
Back
be.
in the day. It used to be, yeah.
All right, guys. I think this is a good place for us to edit, so we're getting a little off track.
Nah, it's all sitcom related.
All sitcom, yeah. It's multi-situational. Let us know your thoughts. You can email us at remakesrebootsrevivals@gmail.com. You can hit us up on Instagram at remakesrebootsrevivals, on Twitter at remakes_podcast. You can search for us on Facebook and on YouTube by searching for Remakes Reboots Revivals. And if you enjoy this podcast, please find us on Apple Podcasts and give us a rating and a review, or review us and rate us on any podcast platform that you listen to. I am a little sick. So if you've made it this far and you've been wondering what's up with my episode, with my voice, that's what's been going on this episode.
I've been recording an hour with you, and I realized what is going on with it?
Yeah, so I got my sticky shoes, my sticky shoes. Isn't that like what Phoebe sings when? Yeah, my voice was way cooler before. Now I'm actually getting better. So, but yeah, cool.
Better.
Right.
Okay. Sure.
All right, guys. Well, until next time,
stay unoriginal.